Starting with the 29 tooth, shows you where all the washers. So what I'm doing here, taking apart a Campagnolo Zonda wheel. It's 10 speed. And we take it all apart and clean all the sand and grit, all the fine sand. I'm wiping off the grease first. We want it nice and clean, like I said. For rolling resistance. Not necessarily the thickest. Good waterproof grease. The internal parts. Degreaser. Perfect. There you go. Shield touching. You see it? Never As we move through space, there's little particles. You breathe them in too.
What is going on, everyone? Thank you for tuning in on this beautiful Saturday. Actually, I'm not even sure if it's going to be a beautiful day because I'm recording this Friday. Today's Friday. Just want to test out the 8.3K option in the Nikon Z8. Now, it's kind of crazy to think about that this camera can shoot at 8.3K, but also Nikon RAW, and also 8.3K, 60 frames per second. I find that just like, it's crazy. One thing I noticed when I was shooting an 8.3K on the Nikon Z8 is that I didn't even get an overheating problem, which is crazy because usually when I shoot weddings, even in 10-bit or the 4.1K RAW, I was getting an overheating icon on my camera, which is kind of weird. Although I wasn't really holding the camera like this, I was holding it on top of the handle, which I think that's one of the things that make the overheating thing happen on the Nikon Z8. So just keep that in mind if you are shooting regular 10-bit or even the RAW format on the Nikon Z8s. Try to always use your top handle, because if you keep grabbing the side here, this is where the memory card is, and it's gonna eventually overheat if you kind of think about it. Owning the Nikon Z8 for, I would say, 9 months now, I absolutely love it. It's a workhorse of a camera. I wanted to test out shooting on the 8.3K option. I've never done this before because I just didn't feel like I need to. The 4.1K RAW is good enough, especially with the oversampling option turned on in the camera. I think it's called the oversampling, whatever it is. It's basically downsampling the 8.3K sensor or their full resolution sensor into a 4.1K RAW image, which absolutely looks gorgeous as well. But I just wanted to test out the 8.3K option available in the Nikon Z8, you know, without even using an external monitor. Everything is done in camera. This is basically the rig that I used to shoot everything that you guys just watched in the beginning. For my monitor, if you guys are wondering, I'm using my Axoon SynView Nano, which is amazing. It's one of those things that it's a must to have in the camera. It's super small, and you basically just use your iPhone as a monitor, and you hook it up through HDMI from the Axoon into the camera. For audio, nothing really crazy, just using the Comica VM40. And then we are also using the Blazer RMS 50mm. Now this is a PL mount lens. I'm basically using the PL2 E mount, and I'm also using the newer dummy E mount option for my Nikon, because I had this adapter when I first bought the Nikon, because I switched from Sony to Nikon, and it works very well. And I'll show you what the actual setup looks like. So now we have our newer mount, which is going to be the Z mount to E mount. And then we have the PL to E mount adapter, and this is basically how I attach the PL to the E mount. So yeah, back to the 8.3K, I just really wanted to test out, if there is really a noticeable difference in quality, especially if you're not even using a 4K monitor, which you're probably saying you're not gonna really even see the full 8.3K option on your monitor, but we are going to be downsampling into a 4K timeline, which is going to be a 4K DCI timeline. So now that 8.3K is being squished into a 4K timeline, which we're essentially doing what this camera does internally, is going to be a better looking image, or if we're just better off shooting an 8.3K and downsampling to 4K. But the one downside that we get from that is huge, large file sizes, and plus you need a beast of a computer to run these 8.3K files. I'm using my MacBook Pro M1, I believe, and it was hard to edit. It was super laggy. I had to originally edit in a 1080p timeline, and then that was a little laggy at first, and then a 720p timeline. It got me through the edit. Now, if you ask me would I do it again, probably not, depending on the project I am shooting. But remember, everything that you just seen right now was done within a 10-minute limit on the card that I have in the Nikon Z8. Now the card that I'm using is this one right here, the ProGrade 1 terabyte. This one here is not fast enough to record in 8.3K. It did stop within, I would say, 10 seconds of recording. Now, the funny thing is it didn't stop when I was shooting 8.3K 60 frames, which is just crazy to think about, because 8.3K and 60 frames, like you would think it would take more of a beating on the memory card, but it didn't. I had dropped frames when I was shooting only an 8.3K 24 frames. But yeah, most of the stuff you've seen in the beginning is all 8.3K 24 and 60 frames. Like I said, it was hard to edit. Would I do it again? No. Anyways, but in this video, I also want to test out shooting 8.3K and also using that downsampling option 4.1K internally in the camera. I'm gonna post a couple videos right now to see if you guys could even notice the difference between the 8.3K and the 4.1K raw, or whatever it is, downsampled internally in the camera. Because I just feel like, if we can't edit the 8.3K on a computer, you do need a fast computer or a heavy duty computer to edit these 8.3K files. Then just go with the 4.1K downsampled. And I think that's just what everybody's doing. The only thing that I can see the benefit of doing 8.3K is if we need to do a major crop in when we're editing. Let's just say we're shooting super wide and you want to crop in to make it look like a 50mm. You could do that, no problem, but obviously there's a downside to that. So one thing I forgot to mention in the video is shooting with these anamorphic lenses, you can't really get super close, especially when you are shooting with these Blazer anamorphic lenses. I was able to get very close to my subject, or my dad in this case, because I'm using diopters. You can pick up a set of diopters for super cheap on Amazon. I'm using these Vivitar diopters. Each diopter is gonna have a number on them, basically indicating on how close you can get. So if you are shooting with anamorphic lenses or the Blazer anamorphic lenses, I would especially pick up some diopters so you can get super close. So I am shooting in 4.1K raw right now. I'm gonna switch to an 8.3K, which is gonna be utilizing the full entire sensor and basically the highest quality that you can shoot on this camera. And we're gonna see if we can see a difference side by side. So this is 8.3K raw on the Nikon Z8, and we're gonna see if we can really notice the difference between 8.3K versus 4.1K raw, which is downsampled internally in the Nikon Z8. So we are using the Vivitar diopter +1, and we are shooting in 8.3K on the Nikon Z8. Now this is the closest I can get to the diopter +1 on the Nikon Z8 with 8.3K Nikon RAW. Okay, so I switched to 4.1K only because I don't have enough space on my memory card, but this is a diopter +4, so we can even get even closer. Now, I'm actually not at the closest right now. If I zoom all the way in, that is probably the closest. Everything you just watched in the beginning of the video was shot on the Nikon Z8. Blaze RM is 50mm, basically this rig right here. And yeah, like I said, I just wanted to test out the 8.3K option on the Nikon Z8. Now, I had a lot of people on threads, you know, comment and say, you know, this looks amazing. You know, it does look amazing, but do we really need that 8.3K quality? I don't think so. I think the 4.1K RAW is good enough. And to think about that we are shooting RAW internally on the Nikon Z8 is just crazy enough to think about. So that's it for this video. If you guys like this video, or if you have any comments regarding shooting 8.3K on the Nikon Z8, let me know in the comments below, and we'll see you guys on the next one.